So we're here to talk about your very serious role.
That's true.
In There Will Be Blood.
It was so weird to be there. It was so weird to be there. And I came to be there because I knew Paul Thomas Anderson a little bit and because I had been cut out of a previous film of his.
Magnolia, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I'd been, everything but my voice was cut out.
Save it for the Magnolia episode if I was there too.
Magnepisode.
All right. So here's what I want to do. I want to start from the beginning.
Yes,
so
that's a very good place to start.
All the details. Let's talk about, you said you knew Paul Thomas Anderson, so was there even an audition process?
No, there was not. I knew Paul from the Largo scene. He was an habitué of Largo, as was I. And I had hung out with him on a few occasions at Largo and then at our mutual friend, Loretta Feldman's house.
And so you got to know Paul Thomas Anderson, would you say relatively well, or?
No, we're still, I would say that we are at best pals, but probably acquaintances. I mean, you know, I was at his house once, you know, and we have been around each other socially, but we're not on like texting terms. You know what I mean?
But he had become quite a fan of the comic scene of the original Largo on Fairfax, right? Because when I saw Magnolia, it was full of, you know, Patton Oswalt. Everybody had little parts in it.
Yeah. I wonder how much a fan he is of the comedy, though, because this is one of my favorite exchanges was at one time at Loretta's house. He told me, "Hey, I saw your set when you opened for John Bryan last week," and I said, "Oh, thank you." And he goes, "It's a little long," which is hilarious that Paul Thomas Anderson would be saying that to anyone.
I know. That was my first thought.
But he was goofing around and, you know, and honestly, it probably wasn't a long, but yeah, I wonder to this day, because it didn't hit me until later, like, wait a minute, you're saying that to me?
It hit you just yesterday.
Yeah. I don't know how self-aware he was when he said that to me.
Oh, that's fantastic. So,
but he's a good guy. I've always enjoyed hanging out with him, and you know, and I'm very grateful to him for giving me that experience to be on a movie like that, and you know, just like even if he like had just invited me to the set, right, it would have been great. You know,
I can only imagine. I watched that movie 2 days ago, and I don't think I'd seen it since 2007. And it's intense. It's a ripping movie. I mean, that's no surprise. But all right, so how did you get word that you were going to be in this film then?
I can't remember if it was a voicemail or if it was an email that said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. I want to put you in it."
So there were no people involved.
No,
just direct contact.
No. It's direct.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And I said I had no idea what it was, and I said, "Yeah, I'll do anything." And so I can't remember if I got the lines. I have just a couple lines in the film, and I can't remember if I was given them in advance or not. It might have been when I got there because you know it wasn't a lot of dialogue. But I didn't know much about the movie. I knew it was based on a novel that I'd never heard of or read. And I knew it was a period piece. And that period was, and they gave me like the dates, like it starts in 1901 and ends in, 1914 or whatever. And that was all I knew, that it just was this brief span of time. And so, but I was up for it, and the idea was me and Flanagan were going to be in this scene. And so we drove out there together. It was shot in Valencia.
Oh.
So Flanagan picked me up and we drove out there together. And it was one of those things where we kept thinking, did we go too far or did we not go far enough?
This is crazy because this is an iconic film in the recent past.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the process is like shooting a web short. Like, hey, you want to come be in my thing?
I guess if you know what you're doing, you can do things like that, you know? And but that is, it's funny, Matt, that didn't occur to me till you say that. Like, it is weird that he called me directly.
I love that he does everything himself, just writing, screenplay, calling people,
right,
tailoring the costumes.
Right.
So you played the role of Prescott.
Yes.
Is that the only name you got? Was there a full name or?
Mr. Prescott.
Mr. Prescott.
Yeah, that's all I got. That's
apologize.
all I got, and I didn't get much. He gave me a little bit of background about here's what the situation is, and all this. But which he told me, there's this meeting, and the whole town is trying to decide whether or not they want to hire this guy to work their oil.
Yeah, basically.
What do you call it? Lease, which he would not take that lease if you gave it to him as a gift.
That's right.
And that's pretty much all I knew. And that I think it was supposed to be in my house.
Because they don't exactly say who you are, but we're led to believe you're some, important member of the town. If not the mayor, possibly himself, or
who
something.
Knows? But yeah, so it's in, it's a house meeting, and I guess it's my house, and so I'm the moderator of this thing.
But you seem to be the only one who wants him there.
Yes. Yeah. Because I think the idea is I know that this could be a lot of money, and that I've heard this is the guy to make this happen,
right.
But honestly, I could not tell you why anyone else is against it. I don't understand why there's an argument. And when we shot, there was the argument was extended, and there were lines that were cut out. Like there were 4 of us that had speaking roles in that scene.
And you were the only one to survive the
I think I'm the only one that to survive.
That's saying something.
There were 2 guys and a woman and me. The only other guy's name that I can remember is Jim Meskimen, who is an actor, and he does impressions and stuff. And he's a guy that's his character actor's been in a million things. You know him if you saw him. I wish I could remember the names of the other 2 people who were terrific people and real actors. And of course, I felt like such a fraud being there. I shouldn't be here at all. But there was a wonderful moment, and I was glad I got to witness this, where the guy who was not Jim Meskimen, who in one of the takes, just some improv started happening, and he had some line to Daniel Day-Lewis, and then Daniel Day-Lewis answers him, and then he said something else, and then they went back and forth for a little bit. And I remember thinking, I'm so happy for this guy. But yeah, there was this whole thing where the actress says something, and then this guy says, "Tell your wife to be quiet," which was all scripted, and then, that leads to the chaos of the meeting breaking up, and Daniel Day-Lewis leaving and me running out after him.
Okay. Oh my God. So how was it a one-day shoot? Was it?
It was 2 days.
2 days.
It was 2 days. And we did, the one day was everything interior, was us in that meeting. And then the next day was nighttime, me running out into the muddy street after him.
So what was the actual physical set like?
They had constructed this, little strip of an old town in the middle of this field in Valencia. And so there were facades of buildings, and the building that we were in, that little house that we were in, they had built just that room inside, and then the rest of it was just a facade. And they had there was, people walking around. There were other facades of buildings, and there was an old fire truck, and all this stuff, and horses, and yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
That sounds amazing.
It was so, it was thrilling to be there. For because stuff like that really feels like Hollywood, you know what I mean? To do a period piece and have a crazy costume on, and they have to give you a specific haircut. Flanagan they shaved the sides of his head. They gave him a real old fashioned haircut. And
a Henry V deal? Or
yeah,
what?
kind of. Yeah. Yeah. And he showed so it happened. We went individually. And then when we saw each other after we had gotten already, it was like, look at this shit.
This is on the day you show up, or is this?
Yeah, it's on the day we show up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So the first thing
they're like, hey, we're going to cut your hair. And you say, okay. You can see Flanagan in the movie as at the door, as Daniel Day-Lewis walks out. Flanagan's standing by the door with his arms folded. And as Daniel Day-Lewis walks by, Flanagan does a dismissive gesture, just waves him out, like that kind of thing.
Fiddlesticks.
Yeah. It's good. I'm glad you're going. That kind of gesture. And it's hilarious. When I realized he was doing that, I almost broke in the scene. Like I watched him do that. Oh, it was crazy that we were there. But I'm glad that he was there because, it could have been very nerve-wracking, to be there, because this feels like a big, important thing. And there was definitely, I was on high, fraud alert, feeling like I shouldn't be here.
I know that feeling.
This is I'm not a real guy. These are all real people.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't be here. I certainly shouldn't be sitting a foot away from Daniel Day-Lewis. That shouldn't be happening at all.
Before we get to Daniel Day-Lewis,
yes.
I want to talk about the atmosphere on the set. Was it tense? Was it light? Was it focused?
It was focused. Yeah, it was focused. I mean, there was not. It seems like so long ago.
I'm sure.
It wasn't grim, you know what I mean, and it wasn't a drag to be there. It didn't feel like everybody was self-important. It didn't feel, it was a movie, and so it didn't feel like people had a sense of we are doing something very important here. But of course, it was the most professional crew, and everybody was dedicated to what was happening. But still, it was a job, and people were having as much fun as you can have working on a drama. There's people laughing, and there's all sorts of stuff.
I don't know why, because I think so many compare Paul Thomas Anderson to Stanley Kubrick that you think like it must be a similar tight working environment, but
right.
There's no evidence for that, right? I mean,
and Paul also is not a punisher of actors,
right? That's what I mean. Yeah.
He doesn't shoot a million things, and he doesn't. I think that Paul likes actors, and he likes. I think he likes the collaboration between actor and director, as opposed to being a puppeteer, and telling people, like making people go again and again until he has this thing that he's seen in his head. My experience working with him twice now and seeing him direct other people, and big, amazing actors, is that. It's not like Clint Eastwood, one take and let's move on. And it's not Kubrick, I'm going to grind you down with 20 takes until you don't know what your name is anymore. It's like I think he clearly, you get the feeling like he gets that, people warm up, people come to the set prepared, they know what they're doing, but that you're not necessarily going to nail it first time out, and
that's nice.
to try different shadings and stuff like that. And you really get the sense that he likes collaborating with the artists that he's working with. Not me. I'm not saying I'm one of those people.
Well,
but I'm saying
twice you were, yeah.
Well, but not in that sense.
But
you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
my thing was always very straightforward, and it was not like, hey, let me try this.
Well, that's what I'm wondering too. With the other guy, it just happened that he had an improv exchange with Daniel Day-Lewis. Did you ever feel like I want to try to do that, or you were looking for the opportunity?
No.
And you just thought, no, I'm not going to dare.
I'm going to do the thing that I'm supposed to do. The only improv that I did was when the meeting completely falls apart and everyone is just yelling and I'm trying to calm people down. And I was like, well, I have to say something. And to my great embarrassment, and people have quoted this back to me, I said at one point, we gain nothing by losing our heads.
I think that's great. Why to your great embarrassment?
Because
that sounds so of the time.
But it sounds like a dumb turn of phrase. You know what I mean?
Is that even a turn of phrase, or did you make that up?
We gain nothing by losing our heads.
Did you make that up?
I guess I did.
I'm thinking you were quoting some like classical aphorism or something.
No. I wish I would. Maybe that's what I was going for, was trying to sound like that. I don't know.
I'm not going to let this go. That's not
I don't know why it embarrasses me. It embarrasses me.
It's
I don't
impressive.
Know why.
You improvised a line that also feels like it's a great quote.
Here's why it embarrasses me is because someone was able to pick it out of the yelling, and they were able to quote it back to me like, I caught you saying this.
No,
that's what it feels like.
When I saw that, I'm thinking you're quoting something, like some great Greek philosopher or something.
Just my dumb brain.
No, that goes on in the pantheon of.
I think I was embarrassed also because I think at the time, like on the day, I was like, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. I'll say this.
Oh, you had that ready to go. That was in your bag.
I think that was after, like, between takes.
Well,
I
that's
came
a
up with
different
that.
story then.
Yeah.
That is embarrassing. That is embarrassing. No, I'm impressed.
I think I also felt, I have this vague memory of, I'll say this, and if And if nobody tells me not to, I'll keep saying it.
That's
like with each successive take.
The worst part about doing that kind of job is not getting feedback. You're thinking like, that means that's a tacit implication that it's okay.
Yes. And I think that is the job on which I realized that.
Yeah.
That because it's very hard there's a thing about acting that some directors don't want to give feedback and you don't get anything from them. And you come to understand, okay, if I don't hear anything, then it's okay. Yeah. But your first instinct is, nobody said anything. I must be doing terribly.
Yes.
And I'm probably going to get fired. Yeah.
It's basically, if you hear not to do something, don't do it. But if you don't hear anything, you're all right.
It's also part of maturity. It's part of just kind of spending time on this earth where you're like, well, if this guy doesn't say anything, I guess it's fine. I'm not going to worry about him.
When this film came out, we did not know each other.
No, that's true.
But I knew who you were because I was a fan of your comedy. Wow. And I had seen you at the old Largo.
The nightclub, yes, before I moved to the theater space.
And I remember seeing this movie in the theater and picking you out going, that's Paul F. Tompkins.
Did you really?
Yes.
It's weird because it's very odd to me who picks me out of that movie and who does not when it came out. Because when you can see me, I'm blurry. I'm out of focus. I'm over Daniel Day-Lewis's shoulder.
So let's talk about Daniel Day-Lewis.
Absolutely.
I read that he was basically kind of trying to channel John Huston for his voice in this thing. Yeah. And you said already that he did different versions of this or different takes. How many times did they go through this monologue?
Oh my God. Boy, that's a good question. It wasn't a lot,
really?
It wasn't a ton. It was, there were a few things that they did for camera angles, a few takes that were done for camera angles. But I mean, that speech was, he showed up ready to go and he knew what he was doing.
Which leads me to my next question.
Yeah. And it was amazing. And it was amazing to watch. And I, of course, having no context for this, I don't know that this is going to be this iconic thing. I don't know that these are the first words of dialogue in this film.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
You don't even know you're in an opening early scene. That's right. Because about 15 to 20 minutes with no dialogue.
Yeah. I have no idea of any of this. Okay. So when I saw it on screen, I was even more thrilled. Like, oh my God, I'm a part of this amazing moment in this movie. But even without knowing all that stuff, to watch him do this speech was mesmerizing. It was mesmerizing,
really?
And especially really knowing nothing about the story, like just watching this guy talk and say all this stuff. You could just tell that everyone in that room was riveted. And, it's this room full of extras, that are watching him do the speech. We're all focused on him. And you could just feel it in the room that you're in the presence of something very special. And I'm not trying to kid anyone, least of all myself, that it's like, I knew when he did it that this was going to be an amazing thing. It was not, no one's thinking about the future. You're just watching this guy and like, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at acting. I am so grateful to have had that experience, to have just sort of, to have been there too. Honestly, really, that is what it feels like. And it's one of my most cherished memories.